Hey, what's up guys, Nick here, welcome back to a very exciting video. Today we have Inside Infinite, which is going to be a monthly blog post from 343, which is basically their hopes, their plan to keep all of the fans kind of in the loop with Infinite before the proper marketing cycle for the game fully begins. So there's not going to be any huge announcements or gameplay trailers in any of these posts, unfortunately. Obviously, I would love that. It's basically just a deeper dive into certain aspects of the game. So this month's big blog post is going to be about the sandbox of Infinite, which is a pretty interesting one. This is all the vehicles, the weapons, equipment, stuff like that. So without further ado, let's jump into Inside Infinite of January 2021 and see what they have to say. And just a side note, if you do enjoy these videos and want to be kept up to date with everything new about Halo Infinite, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. So the post starts off with Unisec basically introducing the Sandbox team at 343. So I will name them. We have Quinn Del Hoyo, Tim Temmerman, very interesting name, David Price, Brian Berryhill, I love that name. These are awesome names for the Sandbox team. Ellen Gleiber and Kevin Stalker. I wonder if he was into the stocks today. I'm sorry, terrible joke. All I've seen is talk about stocks recently. But after they introduced the team, they basically asked them, what is the game sandbox? Like, what is a game sandbox? I already described it. Basically, that is the weapons, the vehicles, the equipment, the stuff that makes up the fun within the game. So they have to find a nice balance between campaign sandbox and also the multiplayer sandbox, because they can be very different. But straight after that, they do give us a very nice concept art look at the Grapple Shot, which is obviously very new to Halo. We've never had anything like this in Halo before, so the Grapple Shot is something I'm very excited to play around with and try for myself. The way it looks is pretty cool. You know, obviously it's a grapple shot, so what do you expect? But very exciting stuff. But they essentially build the toys that all of us, the players, are going to play with within the game. So the Sandbox team is very important. But they have a little quote here, which I think is really important for all of us to know. We create weapons, vehicles, player mechanics, and systems that are intuitive and reward player mastery. Basically, anyone can jump in, play with these things, but if you're a really good player, if you're someone that's dedicated to Halo Infinite, you'll be able to master all of these things, and, you know, obviously if you're good at the game, you'll be able to absolutely destroy someone that's new. But if you're brand new, they should be easy enough to pick up and use to a basic level. I think some games have a pretty bad issue where it's really hard to get started because you just have no idea what's going on. So it's kind of a hard mix between finding and building stuff that is going to be easy to learn straight away, but also if you put enough time into it, you'll become really good with it and master it and be able to do things that a noob just couldn't do. They also go on to say, we respect Halo's legacy by partnering with our players with the same honesty and integrity we use to craft our gameplay. So all that sounds very good to me. Very good start from the Sandbox team. So after that, they talk about the combat doctrine. So this is basically a document that they stick to. This is what, in their opinion, makes Halo Halo. So there's some very intriguing stuff that they have built up around this. So the first point in the combat doctrine is the dance. If you've never heard of the dance before in Halo, basically this is how combat works. So I'm going to read the exact extract from the post here because I think it is really interesting. Player goal. Players feel combat is in their hands to win or lose. Halo's combat is a dynamic rhythm of engagement, reactive, and cerebral dance that feels like a symphony of combat choices. Whoever wrote that obviously is really passionate about Halo combat. This principle speaks to that feeling of nuanced combat between players that only Halo provides. We refer to this as the dance. Some of the key ingredients that we keep top of mind are the right balance of kill time, movement, using a diverse sandbox, energy shield based health model, etc. In every encounter, the player feels like their choices are what produces the outcome and results in victory. They can outsmart or outplay their opponent because they use the correct toys and skillful actions for the given situation. This principle is where the classic golden triangle is taken into consideration. All right, so that is basically the dance within Halo. So very nice description. Whoever wrote that, I love it. After that, they talk about the tools of engagement. So again, I'll read what they say here. Players will feel they are skilled Spartans, armored super soldiers, not regular foot soldiers. Each weapon or piece of equipment has a distinct feel and skill to use effectively. So basically every weapon should feel unique and actually feel like it has a use of its own. The tools of engagement principle encompasses the symbols of what makes Halo Halo. Fluid movement, accurate gunplay while on the move, clear rules for every weapon, vehicle, etc. When we began to develop on Halo Infinite, one of our major goals was to remove redundancy in the sandbox. Weapons were the first area we wanted to have strong rules that players gravitate to because of a certain playstyle. So basically they want every weapon to have a certain playstyle, they want everything to feel useful in some way, which is obviously very important. We started from a blank canvas and called out all the high level rules and playstyles that we wanted players to experience. From there, we started to get into the details of which specific weapons were going to fill those roles. This is also where damage types as a much more feature-rich system came into play. Engaged Halo players understand that plasma is strong against energy shields, for example. In order to really build out the player choice and rules of our sandbox, we felt it was important to feature multiple damage types in the game so we have more attributes to play with when designing vehicles and weapons. As the game launches and we continue to develop new weapons, there will always be some crossover of rules and playstyles, but we'll be much more involved with keeping the sandbox fresh, which means that weapons on day one will assuredly be different after multiple updates and patches. So basically there's multiple different damage types you can do with multiple different weapons. Every weapon is going to have its own use, which is awesome. I don't want a repeated battle rifle 3 different times, but they also know that after launch weapons will change and they may play completely differently 6 months after the game initially comes out. So the game will forever be evolving, weapons will feel different, so it's going to be basically something to learn every single time they do a big update, which is a good and bad thing in my opinion. On one side it's nice that you're always going to have something fresh to learn. On the other side, if you really like how a weapon plays one update and the next update they totally change it, it might just completely ruin it for you. But after that they have a really nice bit of art from a Halo graphic novel that came out in 2006. This isn't to do with Halo Infinite specifically, but I just wanted to show it because I think it looks really cool. After that they have Lone Wolf. The players feels like they can stand alone and be effective without teammates or AI companions. So basically players that don't like to play with a team. So anyone that plays free-for-all will enjoy this part. To abide by the Lone Wolf principle means that we must provide the players with the necessary items and features to empower them to be effective on their own. Teamwork will augment the experience, but we will need to ensure that the player can feel powerful on their own. One way that we achieve this is by looking at designing, tuning, and balancing the starting loadout for players in multiplayer. The basic traits, tools, and weapons must allow the player to be effective from the moment they spawn without the need to scavenge for good weapons. So basically they want every player to be capable on their own. They don't want to feel like you have to go and get a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher to be effective whatsoever. As soon as the game begins, you have all the necessary tools and abilities that you need to be able to do any effective work on the battlefield, which is nice. Next up, we have connected to actions. Players' actions are quick, frictionless, and responsive. Halo is best when the controls feel frictionless, natural, and responsive to the point that the controller or mouse and keyboard fades away and the player is just engaged in combat. Everything should feel intuitive and we don't want the player to have to fight the game in order to have fun. It's because of this principle and the fact that Halo Infinite will be on PC that led us to rebuild the control scheme to allow players to fully rebind and remap their controls regardless of platform. How players control Chief or their Spartan is crucial, and we recognize that players feel the most connected to the game when control customization is fully featured. So basically we're going to be able to control everything about our setups. If you want to make a certain button do a certain thing, that is totally at your fingertips, which is awesome. We'll be able to fully customize our Halo experience when it comes to controlling it. After that we have survivability. Players have a clear understanding of their vulnerability and threat identification. This principle conveys a couple of important values. First, the importance of the systems in the game that provides the players the ability to assess pertinent information regarding the health state of themselves and opponents so they can make the best combat decision possible. The importance of energy shields as part of the overall health mechanic cannot be understated. When creating new sandbox items that interplay with damage or affect the player's vitality, we take into account all of the knobs at our disposal for energy shield tuning, such as max shield value, shield stun time, shield recharge time, and more. Players need to feel durable and strong when they have shields up. If we create a sandbox toy that violates that feeling, then we run into the problems as we conflict with that foundational gameplay element. When that happens, we move away from the experiment and try something else. So all of this sounds really good to me so far. It sounds like they have a really good grasp of what makes the Halo sandbox what it is. Something really unique. In my opinion, there's no other game in the world that is quite like Halo. So they totally get it. I feel like they have a full understanding and a proper grasp of how to make a Halo multiplayer or Halo Sandbox a good one. They then go on to talk about the equipment a little bit. I'll keep this one a little bit shorter because obviously you don't want to just read a big wall of text, but they basically say that equipment is there to be used as a way to kind of flip every combat encounter on its head, so you never really know what to expect when you go into battle with someone. For example, if you go to shoot a Spartan, it's not as simple. You shoot them 4 times in the head and they're dead. Out of nowhere, they could use a grapple shot or throw it on a drop shield or something like that to maybe change how you go about entering a combat situation. Obviously, as time goes on and you play the game more, you'll be able to master using these bits of equipment, so you'll be able to outplay your opponents better, and you'll also be forced to try and learn how to use them better yourself so you can keep up with the opponents and maybe outplay them yourself. But of course, you're not going to spawn with any of this equipment. It's all going to be on the map for you to go and find and fight over, so that is very nice. No longer like the Halo 5 Spartan, everyone spawns with a thruster pack and everything like that. All of the equipment that you're going to throw down and use during the game will have to be scavenged and fought over, which in my opinion is way better. It takes me a little bit back to Halo 3 a little bit, because obviously Halo 3 had equipment and I absolutely loved it in that game. But they also go on to say that equipment will be slightly changed from campaign to the multiplayer, because obviously, so if something is super powerful in the campaign, it might just be not fair or not fun in the multiplayer, so there will be slight differences in that regard. They then go on to talk about the vehicles and how they have kind of re-sculpted how the vehicles work in Halo, because the terrain in Halo Infinite is going to be unlike anything we've ever experienced before. As we saw in the campaign demo, the Warthog went over that big hill and it landed in the mud. You can see the Warthog kind of moving with its springs, and it looks a lot more realistic almost. The Warthog looks like it reacts to the environment a lot better than what we've seen before, which really excites me. I take a direct quote from the blog here, which I think is really nice to hear. Every vehicle enthusiast has a story where someone pulled up in a Warthog, beeped the horn, and they got in, and they spent the whole match playing together. Even if you got destroyed on spawn, you'd find each other to go for another round with another vehicle. Some of my best college buddies were made this way on LAN. Vehicles are the only inherently cooperative part of the sandbox, so they carry the responsibility of forming these connections. I think single player vehicles are important for encounter design, but multiplayer vehicles are necessary for Halo's community. So they totally understand that you need vehicles that you can jump into with a buddy or maybe a random person online to tear it up. So I'm really hoping this means that they're thinking about the Hornet, because I'll be honest with you, I missed the Hornet so much. I really missed the idea of having a multi-person air vehicle, so hopefully that returns. But multi-person vehicles are a key part to Halo's multiplayer in my opinion, so I'm super happy to hear that they know this themselves. They then go on to talk about damage types within Halo Infinite Sandbox and how they're using damage types as a way to keep every weapon unique. Instead of, you know, having repeated weapons like they maybe have in the past, every weapon is going to feel unique, it's going to feel important because of how it deals damage to the enemy players. So they mention kinetic and plasma damage types, but they also go on to say the team has also been pursuing new surprises for players that we're eager to talk about in the months ahead. So you never know, we might get some crazy types of damage weapons in the future with Infinite. I'm very excited to see what they're cooking up here. They don't go into too much detail here on the damage types, but maybe they'll do a blog post on this in the future. After that, they talk about the new CQS-48 Bulldog shotgun, because there was a bit of a backlash after the gameplay reveal, because this is seemingly replacing the classic shotgun that we all know and love in Halo. So they give a bit of a basic rundown on what the Bulldog is and what its role is going to play. So Quinn actually gives a bit of a breakdown on the Bulldog, so I'll read that for all of you now. The Bulldog is an exciting new shotgun weapon that is fast firing and fast loading. We have felt that the shotgun playstyle has been underrepresented in previous Halo titles, particularly in multiplayer. We found that there are a lot of players that want to be that in-your-face, close quarters combat frontliner, but have never had a more readily available, less powerful, but still effective shotgun that allowed them to play that role frequently across the multiplayer experience. That is essentially the player story genesis of how the Bulldog came to be. So basically, they think that the classic shotgun didn't quite meet the close quarters combat role that they always wanted for in Halo. They think that it didn't give that players the option for that, whereas the Bulldog is better fitted. It's going to be a little bit different from the classic shotgun. It's going to be a lot more faster firing. It's going to reload faster, so that people want to get up in your face and be that really, you know, fast-paced player, this Bulldog shotgun is going to be the weapon that they want to use. They then go on to say that they will always be looking out for player feedback. So if you really hate how a certain weapon works, or maybe you just don't think it does enough damage or whatever, make sure you get feedback when flighting actually happens, because they will constantly be tuning weapons even after release to make them as fun as they possibly can be. Unisec then goes on to say what are they currently working on, what is their current goals, and obviously making sure everything is super polished, super fun for whenever the flighting begins is their current objective, as well as fixing bugs. But they also say, additionally, we are taking time to evaluate the visuals of certain sandbox items with the goal of ensuring everything is landing the way the art directors envisioned. As a result, some sandbox items we've previously shown might be getting a facelift here and there by the time you see them again. So basically, weapons that we saw in the campaign demo might look a bit different in the flighting or whenever the game fully releases. So I'm pretty excited to see what weapons they've kind of gone back to retune and also just give a facelift to make them hopefully look a lot better. After that though, they then show the Hydra, which is looking absolutely beautiful. To be honest with you, I was never a massive fan of the Hydra in Halo 5, but I do have to say it looks pretty incredible in Halo Infinite. It looks really mean. It looks like very, very powerful, which is awesome, obviously. So hopefully the Hydra works a lot better. Hopefully it's a lot more enjoyable going into Halo Infinite, because something about it in Halo 5 just didn't really agree with me. Unisec then asked the Sandbox team what is their favorite weapon, vehicle, or piece of equipment in Halo Infinite. And then he also says, if we haven't shown it yet, can you give us any hints as to what it may be or why it's your favorite? So we have a couple very, very interesting answers. So Quinn, I'll go with him first. He says, one of my favorite sandbox items is a vehicle that we haven't shown yet, but I'm sure I won't be alone with my favoritism once we do reveal it to the community. This vehicle isn't totally brand new, but it has received a fresh coat of paint while awaiting its triumphant return to Halo. So I think this might be the chopper, I believe, because obviously the Banished are brutes. The brutes are known to use choppers. He says this is a vehicle that isn't totally brand new. So I don't know, I'm presuming it's going to be the chopper. I would really love to see that vehicle return. And if it's all banished and just next genified, that's not a real word, but I think it could look amazing. I think the chopper next gen could look awesome. So I'm really hoping it's that. And the next answer is, I mean, my favorite vehicle has to be the Warthog, right? There is no other choice. It's the GOAT. Although we are working on a new vehicle that is looking pretty hot. This new vehicle will sit nicely between the Warthog and the Scorpion in terms of power level, so it should ignite some new discussions on what vehicle to take to a mission. We just got our initial concept, which really lit a fire under the team to get into flighting, so stay tuned. So a Warthog and a Scorpion had a baby. What does it make? My brain can't even fathom what this could be, but I don't know, maybe like a super, I don't know, like a Warthog with a giant Scorpion turret on the back of it. Something like that would be kind of cool, I suppose. I've seen that in mods before, so it's not totally impossible, but either way, whatever that could be sounds really, really exciting. And the final comment from the Sandbox team is talking about the fusion coils and how the fusion coils themselves will take advantage of these new damage types. So whenever you pick up a fusion coil to throw at an enemy player, we can expect some surprises. It'll actually affect them in a certain way. It won't just be a typical explosion. So I'm very excited. The Sandbox sounds like it's going to be really, really well thought out. It seems like they have a really good idea of how to make a fun Halo sandbox. So hopefully it's really enjoyable, because it sounds really exciting from what I've read today. So I'm going to end this with Tales from the Trenches, which is basically some parting words from employees at 343. So I'm going to share them with you. From Sam Hanshaw, who is a live producer, he says, this year I'm excited about getting our flighting program together so people can play some Halo. We've started spinning up more internal flighting, getting our builds to where we want them, and working on our delivery process. Sometimes we run into some difficult situations along the way, but the way the team is put together to get these flights off the ground is inspiring to me, and I feel lucky to be part of this team. Of course, part of the excitement comes from knowing this is all building towards public flighting later this year, and if people are as excited as I am about that prospect, they should opt in for the Halo Insider program. Basically, the Halo Insider program is how you get to be involved with Halo Infinite flighting, so if you're not signed up to it, link to it will be down in the description. It is very simple and very, very easy to sign up. Next up, from Josh Marvel, who is a senior lighting artist, he says, I've been excited to incorporate many of the graphical features we've developed over the last 6 months at the same time that we were refining the lighting and environment art for the world that we've already built. In earlier iterations, we were just getting the major components of the world to a fully featured playable state, but now we are reconsidering how they interact and improving what helps the world to be its most beautiful and intriguing. We are excited to share more soon. So basically, the lighting has received what seemed to be a massive overhaul from what we saw in the campaign demo. Obviously, a lot of people complained about the lighting. it did look pretty bad, so hopefully all these new improvements that have been made look awesome. And then from Daniel Giannetti, who's a game foundation architect, they say, here's something that excites me as an engineering architect for Halo Infinite. We rebuilt the engine multi-threading solution to ensure high execution efficiency across all platforms and PCs. Instead of running optimally just on Xbox One, we use this new system to transition the renderer to a massively parallel multi-threaded framework to support the increased cost of all the new rendering features and achieve high graphics efficiency on PC CPUs of various sizes, as well as Xbox Series S/X and Xbox One X/S hardware. Not gonna lie, I'm shocked that I read that so flawlessly the first time. In practice, this means that we are doing our very best to make sure Halo Infinite runs optimally on any device you may choose to play on. So pretty much they're guaranteeing that this won't be Cyberpunk 2.0. Obviously I made that video a few weeks ago, but this has given me massive hope that it's not going to be anything like that. And now they have a few parting words from Halo Infinite's creative director, Joseph Staten. I cannot believe that Joseph Staten has come out of the woodwork to become the creative director on Halo. Like that, this is like a dream come true. But this is called Dances with Hunters. Ah yes, the combat dance, the beating heart of every Halo game. For grizzled Spartan veterans, this should be a familiar scene. Imagine a Forerunner interior, a timeless metallic vault with soaring ceilings. It's quiet, empty, except for a pair of hunters. Shields up, shoulder spikes twitching, blocking your path forward. What to do? That's easy, I said to myself the first time I fought hunters in Halo Infinite. Bait them, get them to charge, then step aside. Pivot and direct as much firepower into their exposed wormy backsides as you can before they turn and turtle. But when I tried these classic dance steps, the hunters had something else in mind. As expected, one of the hunters charged, exposing its weak spot. By the time I pivoted to face it, however, it had already pivoted to face me. That's odd, I thought. Must be a bug. I tried the dance's step again, same result. Except this time, the second hunter filled my face with fuel rod projectiles, sending me scrambling for cover. Crouched behind a Forerunner pillar, shield fried and health deep in the red, I had a quick think. What's different? Hunters turn faster? Okay. Assume this isn't a bug, what's the game trying to tell me? What new dance moves have I got? As another volley of enemy fire rattled my virtual head inside my virtual helmet, I remembered. I have equipment. Specifically, in the case of more reactive hunters, I have a Grapple Shot, which means I'm faster and more mobile too. I don't want to spoil your own experimentation with a detailed description of what happened next, but suffice to say, the Grapple Shot didn't cheese my encounters with the hunters, it deepened it, simultaneously made me feel more powerful and the hunters more intelligent. We all knew the rules had changed, but the hunters weren't going to let me dance in their graves without a fight. So as always, Joseph Staten has got my hype for Halo Infinite at an absolute max level. I don't think I could be any more excited for this game. This man could literally just say the word Halo and I would probably lose my mind, to be quite honest with you. But that is the end of the blog post. Inside Infinite for January is now complete. It is done. The Sandbox team seemingly are doing a fantastic job. They seem to know exactly what they're doing with this game. So I am so excited to see this game come to reality. Just let me actually play in a flight to see what is going on with this. I think everything about this sounds really, really exciting so far. So if you guys did enjoy this breakdown of the Inside Infinite blog post for January, make sure you drop a like down below. It takes me quite a while to record these because I don't want to read absolutely everything, so I have to read it and then go back through it. So new comment, little subscribe, something like that would really make my day. But that is now the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you're all excited for Infinite. I cannot wait for these flights to begin. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. So with that, I'll catch you guys later on.